All right, I believe we can start. So welcome everyone to the ASG debate featuring the candidates for president and vice president of ASG, as well as the Senate chair candidates. My name is Kyle Andrews, and I'm currently junior senator, and I'll be one of the moderators for the debate. Charlie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hear you, Kyle.
Can you not hear me? Are everyone able to hear me?
We're able to hear you, Kyle.
Yep.
All right.
My bad.
All right. Charlie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi guys. Sorry I tuned in late. I've never had such a hard time logging into a Zoom meeting, but I'm the vice president and the chair of the election committee, and I'll be co-hosting the debate.
All right, so to start, we'll just go over the format again. So it'll be 5 minutes for introductory statements. By random draw, we created the random number generator. We figured out the order of people who will be speaking for Senate chair. Since there's no other candidates for president and VP, the candidates for those positions will be the first ones to speak for that. Off that, we'll go 1 minute to answer questions selected by the election committee that are based on our own created responses, as well as ones from the student body. And after going through 30 minutes of those, whichever is, or we use like all the questions, we will then go to the student body that's on this call and have them ask questions. At the end of that, we'll let 30 minutes for that happen. And then after that, we'll have 2 minutes for closing statements from everyone. In addition, for the Senate chair candidates, we'll allow for 2 people to rebuttal or elaborate on any statement made by other Senate chair candidate during the round. And you'll have 30 seconds to do that. And if candidate A and B respond in the first round, then candidate C and D will have the next opportunity too. Does everyone understand?
I have a question. How are we going to show that we want to answer? Just start talking, or do we need to raise our hand or something?
For the first round, just raise your hand on Zoom, and we'll then pick you up whoever the first 2 who are, and then going forward, they'll be alternating each other around.
Sounds good.
In addition to that, for the students who are on this call, we ask you to please send a message in the chat to Charlie or myself with the questions that you would like to ask the candidates, and we will then ask the questions for you. Also, for all the candidates, we ask that they keep their video cameras on if possible for the duration of the debate. So then we can make sure their picture is shown. And then that is all. Does anyone have any questions? All right, I guess we can start with introductions. So Sierra and Anne, would you like to go first? And you have 5 minutes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sierra Moezides.
I'm Ann Kodia.
And I'm running for president.
I'm running for vice president.
So I'll just talk for half of this, and then Anne can talk for the other half. But just a few things about me is that I am from San Jose. I'm a political science and communication double major and an Ames minor. A few things I'm involved in or was involved in throughout campus is Res Life. I am the co-president of Ignite SCU, which empowers women to enter into politics. And I'm also part of MENA. And as an Iranian American young woman, I'm really happy that we have a place in the MCC currently for that. Specifically, when it comes to why I'm running for ASG president, I think that it's honestly because over the past few years that I served as a first-year senator and a sophomore senator, I encountered a lot of challenges on ASG. As we all know, there are a lot of challenges both within ASG, but also in terms of students understanding what exactly ASG entails. And if we're actually doing anything. And so I really want to encourage a culture change and be that advocate for all of you and be that spokesperson in order to actually get things done. And 2 of our values that I'll go ahead and explain is inclusivity and transparency. Inclusivity for all people from all walks of life, all people of color, people that are first gen in the LGBTQ community, literally anyone that I want to have a space on Senate. And additionally, or not just Senate, but actually all of ASG. And also bridging that gap between different orgs on campus, between different CSOs, whether that be the SCAP or the MCC, to ensure that, we are working together, we are coalition building. And the second value is transparency. a lot of people feel that admin is not transparent. And in a lot of ways, I do agree. Additionally, a lot of people feel that ASG is not transparent. And I know that there are a few senators that have been transparent, but ultimately the organization as a whole never seems like it can be fully transparent to the students. And so specifically, Anne and I really want to work together to ensure that whatever platform we can get to really encourage our voices. We hear that ASG, isn't the best organization, but how can we improve that? And I think that's what Anne and I definitely want to do next year. Anne, take it away.
Okay, so I'm Anne. I am a junior. So I transferred to Santa Clara. So my freshman year, I went to University of Wisconsin, which is a huge school, and I was on student government there. That was a super interesting way to see like student government dynamics of a school with 25,000 plus students. And then when I transferred to Santa Clara, I joined the community development branch as the traditions chair. Had a blast with that. That's when we launched Bronco Friday. Had a good time with that, really bringing spirits up on campus. And then this year I am on Senate. So it's been really cool to see both sides of ASG on different branches and see kind of the bigger picture, because as VP, community within ASG and outside of ASG is a huge thing. If ASG can have a strong community within the organization where people feel comfortable working together, they have fun together, but they also respect one another, we're going to be a much more efficient and well-run organization on campus, which would be able to better serve the students. So one of our values is accountability. That's a big thing for us. We want all students, like outside of ASG, in ASG, whoever, like just come talk to us. If you like something we're doing, or if you don't like something we're doing, we really want feedback. And we want to know that what we are doing is we want to know what you think about what we're doing as an organization. So we really just want there to be consequences, both positive and negative, for our actions. And then another value is efficiency. If students come to us with something, they're like, hey, I kind of think this should be worked on campus. There's no way to guarantee that everything can get done, because there are outside obstacles like administration, time, money, all of that, but we can promise that we'll do our best to get things done quickly and look into everything and just give everything a chance at least. So that's what we're all about.
We can't hear you, Kyle. Sorry.
Thank you, Sierra and Anne. So based off random draw, Raul, would you like to start with your opening statement, please?
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Raul Orellano. For those who don't know me, I am currently a sophomore on Senate, and I've served as a sophomore senator this past year, and I served as a senator at large for LGBTQ+ inclusion during my first year. And the reason why I'm going for Senate chair is because I believe that I can continue to build on my leadership experience within Senate. Oftentimes I've represented different diverse groups on campus, advocated for different issues, stood up during debates and different conversations. I've had difficult dialogues with upper administration. And so I definitely see myself being able to lead this organization in the right place to continue enacting social change on campus. Some of the things that I'm putting forth in my platform are action, and representation. And through my AIR platform, I hope to make sure that everything Senate does and ASG does is action-based, ensuring that senators are working on projects that are definitely what the school wants to see. Integration by conversing with all the different CSOs, RSOs, multicultural organizations, and leaders on campus that partake in different activities. And representation, to me, when I see the word diversity or representation, it shouldn't be a buzzword. And what I mean by that is that we should do more to strive for better representation within Senate. Even in the past 2 years, I know that there have been a diverse I guess a diverse list of senator positions, and I want to ensure that new voices or new positions are open and available. One idea I really like that someone proposed this year to our current Senate chair David Warren was senator at large for first gen students, and that student ultimately was not able to continue applying. But I think that having those sort of relationships with like first gen program and like the lead scholars program, and also like different organizations on campus like the MCC is really important. And that's something that like I guess my track record has spoken to. I've continuously stood up for different issues on campus that like represent what my constituents want. And I can like talk about these somewhat later in my, I guess, questions, but something that I see as important in this organization is transparency and accountability, and something that I've always advocated for. During the past year, I've worked a lot with different senators on other resolutions and proposals for administration to be more transparent with like what is going on with like the COVID-19 issue, and some things that I have worked on with like other senators, namely like Senator Vidya Pingali and Senator Abby Alvarez, are a tuition response resolution, and then other senators that participated in that were Senators Zach, Obasi, Mika, and sorry, I'm blanking out on one last name. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I'm like getting really nervous, but essentially we like worked on a tuition response resolution for administration, and I want to continue like voicing those concerns about students. And then also I like worked and helped lead like the Hyundai Challenge with Vidya Pingali, and we worked hand in hand with like administration, namely Crochet, and like advocating for students. And I know that that's something that like students have kept asking for. When I was senator at large for LGBTQ plus inclusion, I worked with the MCC and the OML office to create a coming out as a queer person of color panel. And then we did a part 2 follow-up where I worked on an LGBTQ plus sexual health panel. This year, I was actually working with OML and MCC again and SCAP with the Q&A program coordinator for SCAP to come up with a school-wide pride event on campus, because I know that the queer representation on campus is still very limiting. And so I want to continue representing that community as well. I've also like worked in the past on like issues with like Mika and Hawad on like commuter and transfer students issues, and I had to step back down from those issues because I was like doing too much, and so I wanted to like ensure that I was like representing those communities as well. But I hope that you can see that I'm someone who's very passionate about change and like leading this organization with a lot of past leadership experience. I have connections with like different organizations and different administrators. So I hope that I can continue being that sort of support system. I also plan to continue working with different RSOs and building bridges and like networking with different clubs on campus, because I know that that's something that students have asked me for during my time campaigning. So I hope that you guys are able to see what my platform is about. Thank you.
Thanks, Raul. Luke, do you want to give your introduction next?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Charlie. I'm really excited to be here with everyone. There's a lot of great leaders here who I've been lucky enough to work with, and some of whom I look up to a lot. And I always appreciate all the hard work that they've done. So I'm Luke Paulson. I'm a sophomore. Some of my background is that I am currently a sophomore senator, and last year I was a first-year senator on ASG. ASG was the first like community I joined on campus, and I've always really appreciated how welcoming that it has been to me and all the people that I've met through it. In addition, this year I've started a new RSO called SU Vibes. So I'm currently the president of that, and we're just kind of in our initial first year building that up. But that focuses on sense of belonging and so a lot of things surrounding our campus culture. In addition to that, I'm involved with College Catholics. Yeah, and then to move to my platform. My main thing is I really want to create discussion around topics that our student body cares about. So how we can help our student body, and so people know what Senate is and who we are and how we can do things. Kind of what CR was alluding to, and just increasing that connection with the student body. And I really want to create a more together environment on our campus. I think this is really important right now just because of the uncertainty in the situation that we're in. And I think as much as we can, that we can support each other and just be there for each other. I think that's really important. And the most important thing for me is our campus culture. I think that we have a really special community at Santa Clara, but we can always improve and build. And I build on that. And I think that I really want to focus on creating an inclusive environment that's positive, where people really feel like they belong to something special, because that is what we are. We are a really special community and campus. And I think that Santa Clara University takes a lot of pride in that, the close-knit community that we have and that we foster and create. And I think that's something that is really important to me and that I want to continue to enhance on, so that when I leave Santa Clara, it's better than I found it. Thank you. That's it.
Thanks, Luke.
All right. Robbie, are you ready to go next?
Yeah, am I on?
Yep.
Yep.
Hey everybody, my name is Robbie Nunes. I'm a junior political science major and philosophy minor from Fresno, California. I'm running for ASG Senate Chair. My platform that I'm running on is based on 3 tenets: effective, impactful, and compassionate leadership. These are things that I'm focused on in my life, not only to be a good leader, but also being a good person. Using these points, I would like to work hard to make sure that the voices of all Santa Clara students are amplified and heard. Behind each of these qualities is an action item that I will deliver as your Senate Chair. I've developed these qualities through multiple leadership roles I've held throughout my time at Santa Clara, including an off-campus founding fraternity president, founding member of the mock trial team here at Santa Clara. Congrats on our work bid last quarter, by the way. Momentum student leader in the Office of Student Life with Assistant Dean Byron Howlett, as well as some other roles in and outside of the classroom I've been really privileged to have. These qualities that I would like to talk about represent my leadership style, and I will make sure that each of them will be fulfilled as your Senate Chair. So first, starting with effective leadership. For me, it's important that Senate is not only accessible, but stays on track if you promote me to Senate Chair. So I want to make sure that everybody has the access to see Senate when it's happening. We know that Senate isn't perfect, and it could always use the benefit of always being accessible to students. So having some sort of live stream would be a great way to get this done. I also think it's important that as a Senate Chair, we plan just in case for COVID-19 were to go through this fall. As someone who's ran an organization actually from the other side of the United States while studying abroad in DC, I know how to get that done whether we're in person or out of person. Finally, I'd like to make sure that we stay on track. I'm going to make sure that we have a quantitative plan to track Senate progress. People often say that Senate doesn't really get a lot done, and sometimes I agree with you. That's why I want to make sure that every senator that we have on ASG will make sure that they're getting things done for you all the time. Next, we've got impactful. For me, that's important because I want to make sure that we're focused on impactful, meaningful things to do for Senate, including Senate productivity and being heard by students on campus. Starting with that first one, Senate productivity, going back to the previous part of effectiveness, some people don't feel that Senate gets things done all the time. Again, I agree with you. That's why I want to make sure that it's extremely productive. We have productive meetings that are efficient, work on time, make sure that the proper business is set on the table each week. As your Senate Chair, I'll make sure that that is always my topmost priority, consulting with the right groups and making sure that people know what's happening this week. Next, I'd like to make sure that people are heard. I'm going to try to re-implement, and I have done already this last afternoon, the Be Heard box at ASG. For those of you who have been here for a while, you knew about this maybe our freshman year. And this is a program where you can submit your questions, comments, concerns, anything you've got for ASG. So I'd love for that to be something as your Senate Chair that you can see, and then I can give out to senators to make sure that projects are done by students for students. Finally, the last one I've got here is compassionate. It's important to me that being a leader, you lead with compassion. And that means recognizing that you're helping lift the voice of the voiceless. It's important to me to recognize my identity at times and recognize who I am and what I'm going, if I win this position, the privilege that I will have. And I would like to make sure that I can use that to further provide voice for marginalized groups at Santa Clara. So on that point, I'd like to make sure that senators at large, I'm going to amplify voices of marginalized students by making sure that there are opportunities for groups that maybe don't interact with Senate have the chance to do so. Secondly, I think another part of compassion is having a sense of community. It's extremely important for Santa Clara, or Santa Clara's Senate, as well as for myself, that organizations provide a sense of belonging, and ASG is no different. As a first year, I found a sense of belonging with all those people. Shout out to the original first year Senator Squad. People that I could confide in and were really good friends with. It's important that the Senate chair recognizes that that's a cohesive group that he's in charge of, he or she is in charge of. And so I would like to make sure that I foster a tight community with programs, events, and outside Senate activities, just like hanging out, and make sure that senators feel connected to their organization. I know that using these three pillars, I'm confident that I can help ASG become a more productive and more representative body on campus. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to your questions.
Thanks, Robbie. Last but not least, Justin, could you introduce yourself now?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I want to take a moment to just kind of recognize the unprecedented times that we're in just because of the pandemic. And I really just hope everyone is doing as best as you can in these tumultuous times. And also, I really appreciate that you're here at this debate. It's really nice to see so many people that still care, that still care about this, provided that everything's online this quarter. And yeah, I'm currently a sophomore senator, and I spearheaded Splash. I was the Splash coordinator, where in the span of 3 months, with about a team of 16, shout out to Cole, Ariel, and Meg, we were able to attract about 300 students and 60 teachers for a brand new event whose purpose was education for students by students. You know, this was a completely new event, and it was a lot of work to kind of do. But through this event, I was able to work with a lot of admin in ways that I don't think any of the other senator candidates was able to do, and also receive $4,750 of funding, which is honestly something that I think a lot of our RSOs and CSOs are poorly lacking. But let's cut to the chase. I'm running for Senate chair to dramatically increase the efficiency and effectiveness of the Santa Clara Student Senate, and to better respond to the needs of all Santa Clara students. I think ASG really exists in its own bubble, solid from everyone else on campus. People associate most of our work with, what happens during Senate meetings, but our purpose isn't just, approving RSOs, like allocating funds and adopting bylaw changes. Like, those things don't move the needle. Rather, our purpose as Senate should be to make an impact by planning and executing solutions on key issues that affect the entire student body. Really, my goal for Senate is to be the best problem solvers on campus. And I hope to do that with my platform centered around the acronym COACH: communication outside the box, action-oriented, collaboration, and honesty. As Senate chair, I'd expedite communication between the student body, Senate, exec, and admin. Any student with an issue should be connected to someone who can solve that issue, even if they're in upper administration. Furthermore, for larger issues that require even greater communication, we'll need to create task forces. For example, Robbie mentioned the coronavirus. We need a dedicated coronavirus task force run by students, not just from ASG, but all students, whose job it is to communicate with students to see how they're being impacted and to demand from admin what's best for students. As Senate chair, solutions also need to be outside the box. If a problem isn't immediately solvable, we can't just give up. For example, if the administration doesn't provide enough money for all the RSOs on campus, it has to be ASG's job to mobilize all the movers and shakers from around campus into a task force to become those problem solvers and bring together all 180 RSOs, the culture clubs, and just clearly present data about why funding is so clearly inadequate and need to be increased. And anyone should be able to lead this task force. It doesn't matter what grade you are, what position you have, and regardless of who you are, they need to be given the proper resources, such as a dedicated discretionary fund for such projects, and easier access to admin, and also help from finance, ComDev, and exec if needed. Also, Senate needs to be action-oriented by tasking a senator for on a relevant issue that the student body cares about. There's immediately some accountability for what senators are expected to do and will lead to more tangible solutions. We also need to be more collaborative. Senators will be encouraged to collaborate across our 4 standing committees and all of ASG on any project. When tackling big issues with other CSOs like MCC and giving MCC more funding, we can form a collaborative task force between the MCC and ASG, and they'll still be given the finance, ComDev, and exec resources and Senate resources that they'll need to be successful. Lastly, as Senate chair, I just think we need to be more honest. We need to be candid about how we allocate over $90,000 of funds to different clubs. I think ASG should publish quarterly reports on how money is being spent and to what clubs and how much money is left, so that what happened this year never happens again. And as Senate chair, I'll also be working very closely with Jeannie, tenant upper admin, And I look forward to cultivating great relationships with these admin. That said, I won't hesitate to be honest with them when I don't believe they're doing what's best for the student body. As for within Senate, I'll make sure every senator has a project and give them the ability to create task forces if needed. I'd connect senators with ASG resources, departments, RSOs, students, admin, and champion their project with everything I have at my disposal. I'd play an active role in developing those new to Senate by creating a formal Senate onboarding process and by making sure I meet with every senator by the end of the first month we get back. And lastly, I want to make sure that senators get a stipend because we're doing meaningful work and we deserve to be compensated. But that was a lot for me. Senators and the student body, what do you guys want? Let me know because it's my job to serve you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, candidates. So we'll now start with just asking a few questions to the president and vice president candidates. Once again, you'll have 1 minute to do that. So let me just adjust the timer for 1 minute, and then we'll start again. All right, so the first question is, what do you think are the roles of president and vice president? Please start.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So this is something that Anne and I have talked a lot about because there's a lot of common misconceptions about the role of president, vice president, and even Senate chair. One thing that you should note is Senate projects are like any projects that senators take on are specifically for senators. My role as president would be to ensure that there is communication between ASG as a whole and that I can take responsibility for the actions of ASG, whether it's good or bad, to ensure that there's increased communication. And overall, just ensuring that, I'm not trying to tackle everything. Anne and I are really focusing on the values in order to create just a better focus for the year. But Anne can talk about her role. Sorry for 20 seconds.
So yeah, VP is very community based, which is something I'm really passionate about. So building and strengthening a community with all the branches, so then we can better serve the Santa Clara community, and also listening to the voices of the Santa Clara community and bringing that to our ASG community as well.
All right, maybe you can expand a little more on that in this next question, which is, how will your prior experience make you successful in this role? It's for both of you.
Beautiful.
And go.
Okay, so as I mentioned before, I've been on ComDev and now I'm on Senate. When I was on ComDev, I focused more on fun community building events actually, so that's helps a lot with the community aspect. And this year on Senate, I've been working on this Safe Walk launch, which is just has to wait till fall because obviously we're not there right now. But the whole idea is to provide a safer community for Santa Clara students, whether you live on or off campus. So really putting like planning skills together and then also working with others.
In terms of my Senate projects that I worked on, one of which is Bronco Posse, which was a movement that I worked with a lot of administrators, sent probably 300 emails to ensure that voices were heard for the marginalized in a way to showcase them in a positive manner and have difficult dialogues. And that turned into also an adjunct and lecture edition. I worked on BTA and sustainability initiatives and really tried to do everything on Senate.
All right, thank you. Another question is, how do you plan to represent your peers and execute your platform if fall quarter is online?
So we've also talked a lot about this, and I think that there's going to be a lot of, addressing how we can lead effectively online in the fall, but also how we can make sure that students are acclimated at whenever we come back. That's probably going to be a lot of our job next year, but we are ready for that because, at the moment, like we really are trying to figure out what do students want and how can we lead an effective organization and have a bunch of Zoom calls with admin, whatever that may be, to ensure that, students' voices are heard.
Also, just creating virtual channels of communication. We've already started a Google form that, if elected, will continue using that for students to put their ideas on and send it right to us, as well as we plan on keeping our CR and our Instagram up so students can informally send us a message and be like, hey, what's going on? So we can be very approachable from a distance.
That's awesome. The last question that we have for you at this time is, what do you guys have any ideas for projects you'd like to push through this upcoming year?
So like we said, the role of president and vice president is really to, make sure that our values are being pushed throughout all projects. So it's not necessarily tackling, one specific project, let's say, making sure that there's more psychologists and CAPS, which obviously is very difficult, but a lot of these things, there is a lot of bureaucracy throughout ASG and with admin. So there's a lot of things we have in mind, but that doesn't necessarily mean that those are the things that we will focus on. What Anne and I want to stress is that your platform is our platform. If no one's coming to us with ideas, then yeah, we're going to start with CAPS. We're going to look into the MCC, and a lot of people have been talking about a remodel. Anne and I want to use our position to be able to uplift other voices, to be able to build coalitions with the MCC, for example, working on Anne's Safe Walk project. These are all ways that we can do that.
Yeah, and we just want to serve the students. So if students have ideas on what they want to change, then we want to help push those ideas forward.
All right, thank you. So now we'll move on to Senate Chair candidates. Just a reminder, you'll have 1 minute to respond. We'll be in the same order that we went through earlier. So I'll remind you of that being Raul, Luke, Robbie, and Justin. We'll have 1 minute to respond. After Justin is done speaking, the first two to raise their hands will be able to have 30 seconds follow-up. So that's what it is, and then I'll alternate the two that didn't have the opportunity to go the first time will have the opportunity to go first next time. So Raul, first question for you and all the Senate chairs is, what do you think is the role of the Senate chair? You have 1 minute.
Sorry, I didn't hear the question. It was like frozen.
What do you think is the role of the Senate chair?
Okay. For me, the role of the Senate chair is like the head of the student Senate. So as Senate chair, I would be responsible for all transition activities, hiring all the new appointed senators, ensuring that senators are working on their projects, leading the weekly 7 p.m. Senate meetings, leading weekly committee meetings for all 4 committees, ensuring that I'm meeting weekly with like the executive branch, meeting with Jeannie, the vice provost, bi-weekly or weekly if necessary, and also just ensuring that like all student needs are being met through the Senate. I understand that a lot of students don't necessarily feel comfortable coming into Senate. So one of my goals is to make Senate more approachable for all students, and that's through making Senate available through Facebook Live, and also through making RSOs or reaching out to RSOs so that they can come to us, and keeping those channel lines communication open with senators.
All right, Luke, the same question is for you now. What do you think is the role of the Senate chair?
Thanks, Charlie. Yeah, I think the role of the Senate chair is first to start internally, just for every Senate on every Thursday night that we have, to be leading that and making sure that we're discussing things that are important, and that we have, that we're going about it and operating in an efficient and productive manner. And then also being an executive on the executive branch for ASG. So working with the president, vice president, and the chairs and leaders of all the other branches, so that we are representing and doing the best things that we can for ASG to help make Santa Clara a better place. And then also just getting student opinions and voices so we can create a Senate that students want to see and hear.
All right, Robbie, please go.
Thanks, Kyle. I think Luke and Raul are pretty much exactly right on what they're talking about for the Senate chair. The Senate chair is definitely the glue that bonds together exec and Senate together. So I think on one sense, you kind of have an exterior role of making sure that exec's working, making sure that things are working smoothly, working with admin for Senate positions, or Senate jobs, but also working with Senate on the inside, making sure that they're all connected and together, as well as making sure that you're hiring, using Robert's Rules of Order every week. That's harder than it sounds. And making sure that projects are put to the table that are going to be effective for Senate. You're kind of the gatekeeper and making sure that that projects are efficient and on time, but also someone who invites people and welcomes people in to make sure that everyone knows their voice is heard.
right, thanks, Robbie. Now, finally, Justin, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah.
Right.
I believe that the job of the Senate chair is to be the leader of all of Senate. I think historically there's been a big focus on the actual Senate meetings themselves, but I think this year, like, something that I want to transition to is kind of more focused on like what is done outside of Senate. I think 80% of the work that senators do should be outside of Senate, and and basically the Senate chair is in charge of just setting and implementing the goals of the year, whether it's the coronavirus task force, whether it's giving RSOs more money, giving the MCC a dedicated physical space and more budget and more resources, but then also making sure that we can effectively utilize Senate resources, but not just Senate, but also exec, finance, ComDev, in a way that it's not just, and this is Ciara brought this up, that it's not just a Senate project, but this is a project that brings together everyone within ASG, and I think that's something that's been sorely lacking. Yeah.
All right, Raul, you may go. You have 30 seconds.
All right. As Senate Chair, I'd also want to include that I'm ensuring that I'm hiring diverse perspectives within the student body. Some other ideas that I have for Senate Chair positions include an MCC relations position, keeping Greek life relations open, especially keeping communication with multicultural Greek life open. I've spoken to several people during my time campaigning, and they've said that they feel that they're excluded oftentimes from the conversation. So I want to ensure that I'm keeping them in the loop.
All right, looks like there's no more other rebuttals, so we'll move on to the second question. What is more important to you, transparency or the trust of SU administration? Raul, go first.
For me, transparency is definitely something that is more important. Working with administration in the past few years, I have felt that I have been able to improve that communication with administration, specifically with the Hyundai Challenge, something that students felt that we weren't transparent enough in. And I was able to communicate those concerns with the students. Even during my time campaigning, I've had several questions about that. And so I want to ensure that students are being heard during this time. And so for me, transparency is holding administration accountable, even if it means sometimes going against a university.
All right, Luke, what is your answer to the question of balancing transparency and trust in the university and administrators?
Yeah, I think they're both incredibly important. I think if I had to pick one, I'd say transparency, because everything that ASG and Senate is doing, we should be honest and do everything in an with integrity. Yeah, but I do think they can both work well together. Hopefully, like if I was lucky enough to be Senate Chair, I think I would be able to have great working relationships with Father O'Brien and all the other leaders. And so I think hopefully we could develop something to where we have a trust to where he would understand that even if I'm not 100% agreeing, I'd be doing what I think is the best for the student body.
All right, thank you, Luke. Robbie, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think the question kind of actually presents a little bit of a false dichotomy. The difference between transparency and trust, really they should be going the same way. I think transparency is definitely the way to go, though. Having sat down, talked with a whole bunch of administration, Gene Rosenberger, Byron Howlett, talking with you all the time, it's really exciting to hear that they want what's best for us. I think they would totally encourage us to be transparent and make sure that we hold them as accountable as much as they hold us. It's important as students that we feel we have a voice, and I think the Student Senate is that role. So being transparent, making sure that everybody knows what's going on, but definitely the more important role for me.
Yeah, I think I think transparency is by far is where I'd go. Like if the administration were to tell me something that they were doing that would dramatically like kind of hurt our students or would not be in the students' best interests, I'm not afraid to kind of put that relationship on the line to kind of fight for what's right and what's best for the student body. And really at the end of the day, the point of the students is that they're here to serve the students. You know, like if there's something that they want to do behind our backs, or they don't believe is the best, or they believe is the best for the student body, but it's something that we don't agree with, I really think it's Senate's job to kind of be like, hey, the admin isn't being transparent about X, Y, and Z, and kind of like making sure that the student body knows and kind of responds effectively to that. And yeah.
All right, any follow-ups from any of the candidates? All right, seeing none. Charlie, do you want to ask the next question?
Yeah, the next question, we'll start with Raul again. Will be, how would you increase the non-ASG participation in events?
Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, I continue to plan to continue working with different departments on campus, such as like SCAP, MCC, RSOs. Even last night when I was campaigning, one of the leaders of a new RSO, Pause SCU, reached out to me and was interested in talking about how I'm going to ensure that like there's still communication and there's attendance to non-ASG events. And I want to ensure that RSOs are being heard and adequately attended to. And I also want to ensure that senators have those open communication lines with these RSOs and other departments on campus. So through my previous involvement and through my previous leadership positions, I want to communicate with those people that I've worked with in the past, and just keep open communication on social media and email. I also plan to create monthly newsletters about what is going on, ensuring that the student body is aware of like different events that ASG is promoting for non-ASG events.
All right, Luke, are you ready to go?
Yes. Yeah, similar to what Raul was saying, I think reaching out to people is most important. I would reach out to all the different groups around campus, the other CSOs like the MCC and SCAP, and the RSOs, Greek life, every single part of our campus and what our students are doing. And then also just at an individual level, I think it's important to reach out to people and through my daily conversations, and to know that I'm open and they can come to me with anything, and that I want them to be a part of what we are doing, and so that they can feel that that ASG is actively working for them.
All right, Robbie?
Yeah.
Same question.
I think it's really important to identify maybe why people aren't showing up to those events and trying to take a step back and look at that. As a first-year senator helping out trying to get athletics up, we all know that that's kind of a down point. People don't want to go see games. It's tough when we watch Gonzaga beat us after the first quarter. However, I think it's important after we identify that sometimes things are lower than we expect. It's important to reach out, like everyone else has been saying. It's important to reach out and build those relationships with other CSOs on campus as well as RSOs. I think ASG should have no problem helping out some of the smaller organizations that it overlooks to help boost their invites to events, as well as reaching out sometimes to off-campus Greek life. There is a lot of cohesion and unity there that we're really missing out on. I think we could help bridge the gap even further by reaching out to those individual organizations.
All right, Justin, please go.
So the question was kind of how to increase the attendance at events. And I think the most important thing is that ASG needs to cultivate relationships between RSOs and the student body and ASG in a way that, quite frankly, we just haven't. You know, we have 180 RSOs on speed dial that we've just never tapped into. And like Senate just doesn't really have the infrastructure to support, you know, Senate relationships with RSOs from year to year to year. And it's a lot more reliant on the relationships that the personal senators have from year to year. And I think we need to change that. You know, although I do have a lot of relationships with people in key CSOs and RSOs on campus, you know, something that we do need to work on is formalizing a structure so that, you know, we're helping them and they're helping us. And with that positive feedback loop, the more that, you know, we can get people to attend their events, the more they'll get people to attend our events. And that's actually one of the things that I was really hoping to do with Splash this year. And I hope that whoever is in charge of Splash next year continues to do.
Great. Are there any rebuttals? All right, moving on. The next question is, how will you make Senate more fun? And we'll start with Raul.
All right. So I plan to have informal social events. Something that I really felt built the community around ASG is the fall quarter retreat. And when I joined my freshman year, that was something that I really enjoyed. And so I want to have more informal socials, like movie nights and like just like in our Senate group chat, ensuring that we're reaching out if there's like any events going on, or even making myself available in like my house, like wherever I'm living next year, available so that like senators can just come out and hang out. I think building that community within the first few months or even first few weeks of Senate is really important, starting in the spring and continuing that into the summer and fall, just because otherwise senators might drop out. I know that there's been in the past an issue with like retention rate because senators feel like they don't belong within this organization. And I think with my identities and who I am as a person and what I represent, students will feel more comfortable coming to me and staying within Senate because I can build that sort of community of trust.
All right, Luke, please go.
Yeah, I think, like Raul said, I think informal social events and just spending more time together is really important. I think that unless you're really close personally and that you have good friendships, that it's really hard to work together unless you know each other. If you know the other senators better, then it's a lot easier to work together and to come up with new ideas. So I think that something I can do is just increasing those relationships. Like, for example, the retreat in the fall, like Will said, is definitely an important thing for us internally to everyone to kind of meet each other and come together. And I think just creating more opportunities for that is really essential.
All right, Robbie.
Thanks, Charlie. Yeah, I think the other two have made some really important points, but I think it's important to notice that you can't enforce fun. I think having these informal events is an important thing that can work out well. I think it really comes down to the executive board, though. Executive board, Senate, President, Chair, President, Vice President, really implementing and going out of their way to make that first reach, to make sure that the new members of ASG feel included. I know that it really helped me out as a sophomore senator returning back. I felt a lot of sense of inclusion after Alex Perlin really reached out to us and made sure that we all felt connected. I would encourage maybe smaller groups, smaller settings, as well as informal groups that Raul and Luke talked about, but some more informal things, catching up, getting dinner at Benson, really small things make people feel connected and know that we're friends with each other.
All right, Justin, please go.
Yeah. So we're getting a new office next year, and I feel like because we're moving to Benson, that's going to help so much. Like I see how Into the Wild kind of uses their office, and I think that's honestly been kind of key to building their camaraderie, and that's something that I think we can do. I think honestly it'd be really fun if we could, decorate and design the HG office in a way that's home for us, so that we want to spend all of our time there, not just like before and after Senate meetings or just because we have to do there for our committee meetings. But also, like I mentioned in my speech, I do want to encourage senators to talk to one another. And Robbie, I think you brought up a very good point of exec has to be welcoming, and of course, like I would like to just introduce everyone to Senate that's new, but also encourage senators to talk to one another, because in order to have a good working relationship, we all need to be friends first, and that's something that we can't force, and we have to let develop naturally.
Okay, any rebuttals? Any other further on points? All right, seeing none, I'll ask another question. How would you handle a situation where an ASG member has been removed from office? How would you address the decision? Merrill, please start.
Okay. So I would say for me, conflict resolution can be something that is both difficult and rewarding. Seeing that someone is removed in Senate position or in ASG, I would communicate with all of the executive branch and also communicate with Ted, our advisor, and ensure that I'm making the best decision by being impartial and working collaboratively when it comes to that, because I want to ensure that I'm listening to what they need and what their needs are, and ensuring that I'm keeping transparency and accountability, but also maintaining important information confidential. I think that I'd also have to facilitate a dilemma by listening and like keeping those positive communication lines open and ensuring that I'm working with like the parliamentarian and Senate chair, Senate executive branch, ensuring that I'm working with the parliamentarian and pro temp on like what the proper procedure is.
All right, next is Luke.
I would, so if the decision was already made that a senator unfortunately had to leave, I think I would want to make sure I was really clear in communicating with the other senators as to what the situation was and what occurred, so that everyone's on the same page and that so we can learn from that mistake so that we can move forward in a more positive direction. I think that's really important, just to make sure that everyone feels like they know what is going on, and so that we can just move on and make sure that doesn't happen again, and just to improve our cohesiveness.
All right, Robbie.
Thanks, Kyle. I think what both Luke and Raul said is really important. Having gone through seeing a senator removed and actually that whole debacle my sophomore year, it's really important that you follow the rules and make sure that everyone does know what's going on. That includes going to judicial and making sure they're being transparent about that removal. So as Senate chair, I think it'd be really important that I communicated with the Senate about what's going on, what the issue is, but keeping everyone in the loop and making sure that people, their abilities to defend, abilities to maybe look further into why someone was removed. It's always important to be transparent, make sure everyone knows what the reasoning is. That isn't some kind of backroom deal that gets decided.
Lastly, Justin.
Yeah, I honestly think it starts from before they've been removed. I assume that because I have an exec role, I'll know if anyone is at a chance of being removed, or before there's a trial. No matter what like a person may have done to kind of, and even if they do deserve to be removed, I still think that as Senate chair, like and also just as a person, we have to be humane and empathetic towards kind of what the person is dealing with, and that and really just like they might feel very alone, but like I still would want to treat them with respect, but and also that comes hand in hand with communicating with everyone with what's going on, and not like keeping secrets, and like not letting gossip kind of spread around, because I think that would be very awkward for the person, because really just not relevant, and then once the issue has been resolved, we just move on to other things. Yeah.
All right. Raul, you go first.
Yes, so this is kind of a question for Justin. In a situation where something is derogatory or harming a specific group, you mentioned being humane and compassionate, and I agree. So how do you think you would handle that situation?
30 seconds.
So I do want to differentiate between like treating like if someone does something that's obviously messed up, something that either just like makes someone feel unsafe on campus, I'm obviously not going to be advocating for this person, what they did is right, what they did like deserves like kind of sorry, I don't know what the, kind of just like sorry, like it doesn't matter like what they did. If it's wrong,
right.
It's still wrong, but we can still be humane in the way that we approach
it.
it.
Justin.
Sorry.
Time.
Thank you.
All right, Robbie, go ahead.
I just had a point to add on to the original comment. I think it's important to distinguish that this is something on the business side. You can't exclude that person personally. That being said, it does depend on the severity and what's happening there. That's a whole different issue. But if you're dealing with something that's happened on Senate, it's important to recognize that's something on a more business, not anything personal connectivity, and making sure that those relationships don't get in the way of what you're doing. It's important to be objective as a Senate chair.
All right, thanks, Robbie. So, excuse me if there's background noise. We're going to move on to questions asked by students and begin with the president and vice president again. So Ann and Ciara, brace yourselves. The first question that we received is, this past year I was impressed by the work ASG and Father O'Brien did to bridge the gap between the student body and upper administration. What plans do you have to bridge the gap between the Board of Fellows and the Board of Trustees with students?
I think it really comes down to, once again, transparency. A lot of people don't even understand what the Board of Trustees entails and like what decisions they're actually making. So at the end of the day, it really comes down to, you know, taking those transparent measures to ensure like this is what they're doing, this is how ASG can contribute to that, and whatever it may be to bridge that gap, like Ann and I were talking about with like our Instagram, and like really showcasing everything we're doing as we do it, so that we can show, like, bring the two, I guess, the students and the Board of Trustees and things that aren't even really accessible to each other as one in any way we can.
Yeah, I think it's important that just like other students know what ASG is doing, it's important that the Board of Trustees know what ASG is doing, because when we do need to go to them, for whatever reason, they know that we're credible, they know what we're all about. And I think there's also a certain element of like, we need to be professional when talking to Board of Trustees, talking with Father O'Brien and other members of administration. So when there are student concerns, they're taken seriously when we raise them to them.
All right, thank you for your first answer. And the second question I'll ask is, I'll pull it up.
Are these timed? Is this a 1 minute thing?
Yeah, it will be timed. My apologies for not starting it.
Very good.
How are you going to advocate and fight for students of color in the LGBTQ plus community?
Yeah, so throughout the past couple years, I did the Bronco Posy campaign, and through that, it was really important for me to, you know, highlight different voices across campus that even I like wasn't a part of. There's a lot of ignorance and misconceptions, and just it's really frustrating to be a minority here on campus. And like, as a person of color, being on ASG the last 2 years, there were times when I was like, wow, ASG is not diverse. And just in the last couple weeks when we had the Zoom sessions, I worked with MCC leaders, and some of which were on this call, to ensure that ASG and MCC we're encouraging people from all organizations to really, you know, join us on this journey of ASG, to really advocate and bring and uplift those voices. So we're going to continue to do that.
Yeah, 10 seconds. Basically, I just think that if we make a more welcoming ASG as an organization, then every group should feel like they can come to us regardless of what like organization they're part of.
All right, and we'll do one last question. How will you improve communication between ASG, MCC, as well as LEAD?
Anne, do you want to start?
Yeah, so actually connecting ASG with the MCC and LEAD, that's like a big priority, because there are these major groups on campus and organizations that the university sees as leading the frontier on a lot of different things, but there's a lack of cohesion right now with that. So just by meeting with MCC leaders, meeting with the students who are involved in LEAD, and really hearing their voices, and then bringing those voices to ASG to make a tangible change in order to really make sure we're meeting the needs of important other student groups on campus.
And if that means going to each MCC meeting once a month, and specifically Ann and I asking questions to the MCC to LEAD, we will do that, because I think that's one of the most important aspects of our role next year, is really making sure that those on the margins feel heard and feel valued in whatever way they can.
Thanks, Ann and Ciara. Now we're going to move on to questions for the Senate chair candidates. So the first one that we're going to ask will be for Raul. And the question is, what is an ongoing issue you've seen in ASG, and how do you intend to address it?
Yes, so one major concern that I have with ASG at the moment is like the lack of, I guess, communication or sometimes transparency with the executive branch and senators. Oftentimes I feel like there are decisions made with the executive branch and like senators find out later, or things happen behind the scene and we are not aware of it. And so I want to ensure that we're communicating effectively. As a member of the executive branch, I would hope to have enough trust within the student senate and the student body and the executive branch so that my concerns are being heard within the other student leaders, but also the students of Santa Clara University. I also think that working on like projects at times can be very difficult. And so I want to ensure that I'm supporting every single senator on what they're working on and keeping tabs on like what they're doing. And transparency just within decisions that are made at the university level. I think that we should communicate those via email or with the student body because they don't read the minutes sometimes.
Okay. So the next question will be for Robbie. How do you intend to work with admin and other orgs like MCC on campus?
I'm sorry, wait, can you repeat the question? I missed about half of that.
Yeah. How do you intend to work with the admin and other orgs like MCC on campus is the question.
That's a great question. Thank you for ever asked that. I think it's really important to first off recognize that I've got some existing relations already with administration. Being the student advisor for Momentum, I've gotten to get to know a lot of administration already and meet them firsthand, really get to know who they are. I think they know that I have students' best interests at heart, and so it'd be really easy to call on that and be able to converse with them. On the flip side, as we all know, I don't have the most connections with MCC out of this pool, but that's okay. I'm still always open and willing to extend those relations. I want to help bridge that gap, just like I did my first year, trying to help out, making sure that every MCC organization was heard on Senate. I made sure with specifically Barcata and Nesby that they were heard, they knew their actions and who to contact. I'm sorry, my second year as Senate. So I'd make sure to really try to open up those connections, make sure that's open and honest, and that I'm here for them.
All right, the next question will be for Luke. Will you please share how you will hold senators accountable while simultaneously recognizing their workloads?
Thanks, Charlie. It's a good question. I think it is important to, especially with first-year senators, to like welcome them in and realize that like it's really hard to just get acclimated to college and Santa Clara and college life and academically workload. So I think it depends on the year, first of all, for each senator. And then I think just talking and keeping in touch on a consistent basis. So each quarter, the senator is working on something that not only is going to make a difference for our school, but something that they are passionate about too, something that they enjoy working on, that they can be able to fit in with everything else that they're doing at Santa Clara.
All right, thank you, Luke. This will be one question that everyone will answer. And it's how we make sure the MCC gets enough representation and funding, as well as how LEAD gets enough representation.
Let's start with Justin.
Whoever asked this question, I think this is a great question. It's obvious to me that the MCC does not get enough resources on campus. You know, like yesterday, like the past 2 days, I've actually been doing a lot of calculations. And the fact of the matter is, like, for all 12 culture shows, their expenses are almost $100,000, and the amount of money that we give culture shows doesn't even exceed that. We only give them $90,000, and that's for all RSOs. There's no way that MCC clubs can continue to kind of do what they need to do to run these culture clubs with the amount of funding that they receive. And I really hope to work with next year's DAD or director and associate director to kind of increase that funding for and kind of like fight the admin, because they really, I genuinely believe we need $150,000 for all RSOs on campus next year. Secondly, with LEAD, I'm a LEAD scholar. I have great relationships with Aaron, and it's not really asking them questions, but it's really how can we bring them in to collaborate with ASG initiatives along with MCC initiatives.
All right. Robbie, you go next.
Thanks, Kyle. So in terms of MCC and LEAD, I think it's important for ASU to recognize that this is a group of public service. It's something that I fell in love with while studying in DC last fall. It's important that you're always asking, how can we help you? Specifically, as someone who's running on Senate chair to make sure that I'm advancing the voices for the voiceless, especially LGBTQ+ and people of color, it's important that we recognize groups like the MCC, who often represent those groups of people, and have that discussion. How can we best help you? I'm willing and open always to hear how I can best help them. In terms of LEAD, it's the same situation. It's always important to sit down and meet with those leaders and make sure that they feel adequately served by the student government. And if not, that they are open and honest about what they're looking for so that we can best help them.
Great. Luke, it's your turn.
Yeah, I think firstly, I would like to have a great relationship and communication between myself and the other ASG leaders and with the MCC leaders. I think if we can talk to them and see what they would like to see with Senate and with ASG and how we can help them, then we would be much more likely to be able to implement either policy changes or just anything to something we could create to help the MCC. So I think that just continually being aware of what is going on for them and just keeping that communication is most important.
Hey, Raul?
Yes, so as a LEAD scholar myself, I can probably say that I have attended almost all the LEAD events that have been hosted over the past few years. I attend almost every single social, ensuring that I'm opening those communication lines with the LEAD scholars that have been in the LEAD program. I didn't join until like 2 months later, but I was able to like still make a lot of great friends and keep those connections available because I think it's really important that we stay more than, or we do more than like what we say we will, and actually show up for these events. In terms of the MCC, I've always advocated for students of color and specifically the queer identity that I hold myself as a queer student on at SU and on Senate. I think I've like consistently stood up for these sorts of contentious debates. One example I can offer quickly is the YAF issue that happened last spring, 2019, where I myself brought in over 30 people from the MCC, and I was able to sway the vote in no on an organization that didn't represent the values and identities that I hold and my constituents represent.
Are we allowed a rebuttal for these or no?
You are.
I wanted to respond to Robbie's point. I do understand that a lot of what you're saying is kind of like being heard, but honestly, it's too little, too late. Like MCC and LEAD should be heard by now. For the past 2 years, it's been clear that LEAD doesn't get enough money. It's been clear that the MCC doesn't get enough money, and there's a lot of underlying tension between MCC and ASG because we've heard them. We haven't done anything, you know. And it's like, what are we going to do about it? You know, are we going to continue to let administration, you know, do what you're doing and continue to inadequately fund MCC, or are we going to work together with the MCC, rally like all of the MCC clubs together,
right.
and finally demand
time
for more money?
Do I get a rebuttal for that? So it's my comment.
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Justin, I think you bring up a great point. I think it's extremely important to recognize that you're completely right, that if those lines have already been opened, it's important that we stay with those lines. But you can't start talking without starting the discussion. I think you're right, though, that we do definitely need to ramp it up. If things aren't working, it's important for us to work together. Students together in solidarity is much more important to me than students in collaboration with faculty and staff.
All right, Raul, I believe you have your hand up.
Yes. So also for Robbie, I think you brought a really good point about the momentum group. I was also part of that group. And I think that is an opening start to where some, I guess, people of color and LGBTQ plus representation work. But can you tell of a time where you yourself have invited past people of color or the queer community into Senate, or have advocated for them in a sort of resolution or a specific inch that has affected them?
Am I good? I feel like it's lagging out. Hello?
Yeah, you're
Okay,
good.
hi. Thanks. Yeah, Raul, no, I think it's important that you bring up, yeah, I haven't necessarily worked necessarily on any resolutions that have come up. However, as part of the Bronco Posse program, during my sophomore year, I helped out with the toxic masculinity aspect. And it was really important to me while tabling with Rashik that we broke up stigmas and stereotypes about things for the LGBT community. In terms of that, not necessarily never got to the Senate floor, but it was always important to discuss that, and as well as the difficult dialogues that followed it.
Great. Well, we're about to move to our closing remarks. So, Ciara and Anne, you have 2 minutes to wrap up your platform.
Okay. Well, I think that everyone here has great ideas. So thanks for sending in questions and all that stuff. But really want to emphasize that Ciara and I have our ideas, but ultimately we're here to serve all of you students. And it's really important to us that everyone in ASG understands the idea that they don't have to go to things, they get to go to things. There's a reason students are elected for ASG, and there are reasons students are appointed. And if everyone takes their role seriously on ASG and can do so in a fun way and make students feel welcome, I think we're gonna have a really good year next year.
Yeah, Anne and I are both really committed to this role, and we want to ensure once again that we are aware of the challenges that ASG is kind of creating, and what we can do is really once again reiterate our values of transparency and accountability and inclusivity and efficiency, because at the end of the day, it's like we see that there's challenges with ensuring that marginalized voices are being uplifted, and they haven't, and there's been a history of that throughout ASG. But Anne and I really want to work towards that, and it seems like all of these Senate chair candidates do as well. And so I think it's most important to understand that, you know, we're going to lead this organization and we're going to do whatever we can. And amidst all the bureaucracy and whatever it may be, at the end of the day, we're going to try to get as much done as we can. And whatever outside obstacles there are, we're going to be transparent and kind of walk you through all of the steps along the way throughout the next year to at least know, you know, we're working and we want to hear from you. And that's the most important thing. So thank you all.
All right. We'll move on again, the same order that we started with. Raul will go first.
Yes, so as someone who has like consistently shown up for these different communities that we consistently throw around, I think it's very important to distinguish which candidates here have been a part of these movements and which candidates have been serious about what they say. I think that oftentimes I get unseen and unheard because I have to work twice as hard for the representation that I hold within Senate. And I'm one of those people that is willing to take accountability and transparency, because time and time again, I've communicated with different organizations on campus about what is going on within ASG, whether that be the lead scholars, student athletes, Greek Life, MCC, SCAP, and different organizations. Like, I'm someone that's committed to the cause. That's why my platform of action-based integration and representation is like really important for what I see in the coming year. I think that something we lack within Senate at the moment is just that sort of communication between different senators. I think that if we were more communicative of different ideas that we had, we can continue serving the student body and its needs best. Something that I plan to do is make Facebook Live during Senate so that students can join whether they feel comfortable coming in or not. I think that's something that we brought up tonight. People want to make Senate more available, but I think that that's going to take a longer time than just picking someone that you think is appropriate for the position, but rather building those communications from the ground up, because the groundwork has to be built. And so I think that making our Senate available through Facebook is important for groups that still don't feel like they have a spot within Senate. But for those that feel like they have an opportunity to lead, I hope that I can be that sort of leader on campus that they can look up to and continue to trust with any of their issues that they're facing, given that I'm always speaking up for these different communities. And in all, I just hope that you guys are able to see like my platform, understand like where I'm coming from, and believe in me. And thank you guys so much.
Great, thank you so much. Next, we'll hear from Luke.
Yeah, I want to say thank you to everyone who has been listening tonight, and also to all the other candidates. I think we had great conversations, and I think this signals a promising next year, hopefully. And for me, I think I just want to keep creating discussion around what's most important for our student body and what our student body cares about. I also just want to keep cultivating a more supportive and together student body and campus, so that everyone feels like they're a part of something special and that they have the best experience they can in their time at Santa Clara. So for me, campus culture is definitely very important, and one of my key focuses that I would like to do if I was lucky enough to be Senate Chair. Yeah, so thank you to everyone for being here tonight. And
Thank you, Luke. Now let's move on to Robbie.
Thanks, Kyle. Going into my fourth and final year at Santa Clara University, I think it's really important that I look back and reflect on an organization, ASG, that's really provided me so much connection to this community. I think it's important that that's why I'm running for this role. I feel that in my fourth and final year, I want to make the most impact I can with the associated student government, and I think Senate Chair is the best way to do that. I think it's important, really quick to recognize, I've been thinking a lot about what Raul was talking about representing certain groups of people, and it's important for me to recognize that who I am provides a lot of privilege and power. In fact, some of the most privilege and power. And electing me to the Student Senate Chair will help me use that to help raise voice for the voiceless. It's really important for me that those marginalized groups that don't often get their voice heard on campus are heard. Following that, though, I think it is important that we recognize that I have the experience out of all three of the other groups. All of us have the same amount of ASG experience, but of the other groups, I'm the only former athlete, current Greek president of many organizations, as well as a Greek life organization. It's very important to recognize that I have some of these connections, and I'm always open and willing to build more connections. For me, the Senate Chair's job is going to help build Bridging the Gap. It's very important to me to work with the president and vice president to make sure that we reach out and to reach those communities that may not have the opportunity to speak yet. MCC, Lead Scholars, these are all great, fabulous organizations that need our help, and it's important for us to reach out and ask how we can help serve them. It's important to me. So help me make sure that we implement effective, impactful, and compassionate change. Make sure you vote Robbie Nunes for Student Senate. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming to listen. I really want to emphasize that as Senate Chair, I'm in the business of creating very, very great teams. And Robbie, I do understand why you think you're more qualified than the other candidates, but I'll assure you that I'm just as qualified. You know, like I do want to go back to the Splash example. Like if it wasn't for coronavirus, I really think that would have been the biggest event in that would have been the biggest event, and that would have been something that that the team was able to do within 4 months. You know, getting 1,000 students, getting 100 teachers, getting funding in the hands of all the RSOs to kind of teach what they wanted to teach. You know, that was the vision. And there are so many things that we as ASG have a responsibility to do, because the MCC lead, RSOs, they're all not adequately funded. But honestly, ASG, I do think we need to get stipends, but we're better funded than them, and we have the resources, and we are the place that the students need to be able to congregate on all of these issues that different parts of the student body is having. You know, and because, you know, I'm a part of the MCC, I'm a part of Lead Scholars, I think I'm the most qualified to tackle those issues from the get-go. And to anyone who's listening, you know, like I want to make sure that Senate resources are accessible to everyone. You know, I don't care if you want to fix caps, if you want to lead more funding, if you want to get MCC a larger physical space. You know, you want to double RSO funding. You know, as long as you have an idea for the SCU community, you know, I promise that Senate will be there to support any initiative on campus. You know, it doesn't have to originate on Senate. There doesn't have to be that power dynamic. And internally, we need senators to become, I want to empower student senators to become leaders. So I don't care what grade you are, what position you're in, what committee you're in. Like, as long as there's a project you want to do as Senate chair, I commit to giving everything that I can possibly give for you to execute what you need to do. And that's why I think you guys should all vote Justin Chen for Senate chair.
All right, well, thank you everyone for participating in the debate. I just want to remind everyone that the voting day is April 27th, next Monday, and please do vote for our presidential VP candidates as well as our Senate chair candidates and the rest of our ASG candidates for all the class senators. It's been really fun hosting, and I hope everyone has a good rest of the day, and please let your friends know tomorrow when this recording goes out to share it with them. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.